Oh, okay. I think I just started the recording. Oh, that's just for me. Oh, I see.
Yeah. I mean, if you record it, it will go to my husband's Zoom account.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe
Um,
I should stop then.
yeah, it's already on YouTube. It's already live on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Did you want to start off with the prayers?
Sure, Prabhu. I will log off at 5:30, if that's okay.
Okay. Sure.
Om Timirandhasya Gyananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat Nashtaprayeshu Abhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki.
Okay. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 18, Verse 21. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yaksha Rakshami Bhutani Pasacha Pisitasana Bhutesha Vatsa Dudu Kapale Sata Jasavam. Translation. Then the Yakshas, Rakshas, ghosts, and witches who were habituated to eating flesh transformed Lord Vishnu's incarnation Rudra, Bhutanath, into a calf and milked out beverages made of blood and put them into a pot made of skulls. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
There are some types of living entities in the form of human beings whose living conditions and eatables are most abominable. Generally, they eat flesh and fermented blood, which is mentioned in this verse as Shatajasavam. The leaders of such degraded men, known as Yakshas, Rakshasas, Bhutas, and Pisachas, are all in the mode of ignorance. They have been placed under the control of Rudra. Rudra is the incarnation of Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and is in charge of the mode of ignorance in material nature. Another name of Lord Vishnu is Bhutanath, meaning master of ghosts. Rudra was born between Brahma's eyes, when Brahma was very angry at the four Kumaras. So here we are continuing on with this pastime of various personalities being made into calves and then various substances being extracted and personalities taking advantage of that. And now we're getting to the yakshas, rakshasas, ghosts, and witches. And interestingly, now we see, as in yesterday, different. The nature of these personalities is changing. So yesterday it was Maya, who was a demon. The demon Maya was made into a calf. So we see devotees and demons taking part in this pastime. And so that today it's Rudra, who's an incarnation of Lord Vishnu. And, you know, this is all to do with the mode of ignorances, witches, ghosts, etc. And you might have seen that picture of Lord Brahma when he's creating, and you see that little baby Shiva coming out between the eyes of Lord Brahma when he gets angry. You can see that that baby Shiva coming out. It's very interesting. So he was born from the mode of ignorance, and anger is in the mode of ignorance. So that's why he came out at that time when Brahma got very angry about the four Kumaras. So anger in the mode of ignorance, so many other qualities that we see the demons manifest. Very expert at insulting others. They get angered very easily. They eat abominable foods. Mentions here, you know, blood, and Prabhupada mentions also these other things like fermented blood and flesh. We can't imagine eating fermented blood, I'm sure. And of course, those of us who were not born into a culture of devotion would have eaten meat before. And such is the world, that meat eating is glorified as such a great thing. It's presented as such an attractive option for people. And to continue this demoniac sort of the march of Kali Yuga, you know, Kali Yuga is marching on. And even though there is a lot of pushback against meat eating, veganism especially, but there's a lot of vegetarian options now available, especially with this artificial meat that they're making now. It's called the Impossible Burger. So, I mean, things are changing, and even though Kali Yuga is marching on in one direction, that we have the golden age parallel with that. And because of Srila Prabhupada's presence, he basically introduced vegetarianism into the West. And from his influence, many people became vegetarians and devotees, but also this acceptance of vegetarianism. And because it was so incredible, the prasadam he was offering his disciples when they first came was so potent. So you see how Prabhupada's presence has influenced the world, and now we see these big companies, really big fast food companies offering the Impossible Burger, which is not, it's just all plant-based. It's a plant-based burger. So that's quite incredible when you think about that. At the same time, we have this pull from the other side, and what they're trying to do now is they've had ground sort of like they've tried to make meat eating more attractive by saying it's naturally fed. The animals are fed naturally, you know, ground fed animals, and they feed them grain fed animals, blah blah blah. And now they're actually growing. They're able to grow meat from using, I think, DNA. Somehow they can use they can grow meat. So, you know, we have these two parallels going along now. And so also in this pastime, we have the parallels of the demons and the devotees taking part, and they're extracting different things. You'll notice that with the devotees, the nature of the what's being extracted is different. For instance, when we were reading about Kapila, he was extracting yogic mystic powers, not blood, you know. And Prahlad Maharaj, he extracted another type of more, well, it was liquor and beer, which is, you know, not something that devotees normally take. But generally speaking, depending on the situation, as you see, Prahlad Maharaj is in a particular situation. He's in a demonic family, so he's bound to, or he's obliged to extract these particular substances. But then you see Kapila, who's not in that situation, extracting mystic powers. And now we see an incarnation of Lord Shiva. Rudra is extracting these other types of substances which are in the mode of ignorance. So we have to be very careful about the mode of ignorance in our own lives. You know, we have to be not attracting that energy in our life. And we should also avoid the mode of passion. We need to come to the mode of goodness, you know. Sometimes we go into the mode of passion or the mode of ignorance, but if we're following spiritual life properly and sincerely, we will come to the platform of the mode of goodness and then go beyond that to Sudasattva, so transcendental goodness, which is beyond the modes. And that's what we're really striving to do in spiritual life. We go beyond the modes, not get stuck in the mode of goodness, which is not the path that will take us back to Godhead. Although from that platform, we can come to Sudasattva. Okay, did you want to read the next verse, or do you want me to continue? Do you want to read the next
verse?
verse?
I can read, Prabhu. Yeah.
Okay.
Text 22. Tatha hayo dandasuka sarpanagascha takshakam vidhaya vatsam duduhur bilapatre vishampayah. Translation. Thereafter, cobras and snakes without hoods, large snakes, scorpions, and many other poisonous animals took poison out of the planet Earth as their milk and kept their poison in snake holes. They made a calf out of takshaka. Purport. Within this material world, there are various types of living entities, and the different types of reptiles and scorpions mentioned in this verse are also provided with their subsistence by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The point is that everyone is taking his eatables from planet Earth. According to one's association with material qualities, one develops a certain type of character. Payaha panam bhujanganam. If one feeds a serpent milk, the snake will simply increase his venom. However, if one supplies milk to a talented sage or saint, the sage will develop finer brain tissues by which he can contemplate higher spiritual life. Thus, the Lord is supplying everyone food, but according to the living entity's association with the modes of material nature, the living entity develops his specific characters. So, this is very interesting. Prabhupada was mentioning that the reptiles and scorpions are also being provided by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is so kind. He does not discriminate how low a living entity has stooped into the modes of passion or ignorance. He is very willingly and lovingly taking care of each of his sons. Because he's the seed-giving father of every soul. So, and Mother Earth actually is providing for everybody's eatables. But Prabhupada is making a very interesting point in the second half of the purport. He's saying based on the modes of nature that one associates with, the same substance, which may be very palatable, can get changed by the association of the modes of nature that one is in. As if we feed milk to a snake, it becomes poison, venom. And if the same milk is supplied to a sage, then he develops finer brain tissues by which he can contemplate higher spiritual life. So, as you were saying, Prabhu, it's important to see what kind of association we have in our life and how we are taking association of the modes of material nature, because the same substance that Krishna is providing, in this case it is milk, can be changed based on the modes of nature that we associate with. So it's very important as devotees, it's very important to consider the food that we eat, the environment that we live in, the association we have, the place we live in. All these different things have an influence on the modes of nature that will either drag our consciousness down or uplift us. So based on Prabhupada's instruction, actually here, our character will be shaped by the modes of nature that we associate with, and that will largely be influenced by the association we have, the food that we eat, and the environment that we live. The sound vibration that we hear is also very, very important. Spiritual sound vibrations have a very different influence on the living entity's consciousness versus material sound vibrations, which have a very different influence on the consciousness of a living entity. Spiritual sound vibrations can uplift us to the point of transcendental platform, and material sound vibrations can degrade us to perform sinful activities. So, very interesting point that Prabhupada made. According to the living entity's association with the modes of material nature, the living entity develops a specific character. Anything you wish to add, Prabhu?
Yeah, I mean, those are good points. And I was just thinking also that in the verse it's mentioned that the snakes without hoods kept the poison in snake holes. I was just thinking maybe that refers to the holes in the fangs of the snakes, and that's how they get that poison. But I'm not sure about that. But it just it explains perfectly why snakes are poisonous. And also, if you feed them milk, they become more poisonous. So the milk, these snakes took as their milk poison. So that's the sort of level you think about a snake is taking milk, but actually it's poison, and they keep that poison ready to defend themselves or attack someone. But as you said, you know, according to our character, we can associate with various manifestations of the material energy, and it can be the same thing, but it will affect us in a different way. So someone who, for instance, buys vegetables and just cooks them and eats them, they're eating sin. They're actually eating sin. So they're getting reaction for that, but the same vegetables can be used by a devotee, cooked and offered to the Lord, and that's the cause of his liberation from the material world. and the other is the cause of their bondage to the material world. So yeah, it's very interesting reading. I don't know what else I can say about that.
Mm. Would you like to read 23 and 24?
What's the time? Okay, maybe okay, 23 and 24. Pasavo yavasam kshiram vatsam kritva shagovrisham aranya patre kadukshan mrigendrena chadam strina krav yada pranina kravyam dudu sve kalevare suparna vatsa vihasgas charam charam evacha. Translation: the four-legged animals, like the cows, made a calf out of the bull who carries Lord Shiva and made a milking pot out of the forest. Thus they got fresh green grasses to eat. Ferocious animals like tigers transformed a lion into a calf, and thus they were able to get flesh for milk. The birds made a calf out of Garuda and took milk from the planet Earth in the form of moving insects and non-moving plants and grasses. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. There are many carnivorous birds descended from Garuda, the wind carrier of Lord Vishnu. Indeed, there is a particular type of bird that is very fond of eating monkeys, and eagles are fond of eating goats. Of course, many birds eat only fruits and berries. Therefore, the word charam refers to moving animals, and acharam, referring to grasses, fruits, and vegetables, are mentioned in this verse. So it gets even more interesting now because we see that even the cows made a calf out of the bull and made a milking pot out of the forest. So that's pretty amazing. A milking pot. So the forest is actually made into a milking pot, and then the grass comes for them to eat. So they're milking basically all these different, they have their agenda. They have their reason for doing things. Tigers are transforming a lion into a calf, and then they're getting flesh. And the birds are they're taking milk in the form of insects and plants and grasses. So that's how this is actually an amazing process that's happening here, and it's explaining why how these resources are being supplied to different animals and to different species on the earth. It's through these pastimes that it actually happens. And interesting here in the purport that it says that there's a particular type of bird that's very fond of eating monkeys. So that must be a big bird. And eagles that are fond of eating goats. So, I'm not sure about this planet, but possibly on other planets this is going on, that these big birds are, I think eagles are big enough to take on, rodents, but I haven't heard of them eating goats before. Maybe there are big ones that can do that. Monkeys as well. They'd have to be quite big birds though. But in any case, it just shows you that these birds, they don't just eat, fruits and berries and seeds, etc. Some of them, they can attack and kill these bigger animals. As it said in the purport here, that many of them eat fruit and berries. And so, yeah, a continuation of this amazing pastime of how the earth is supplying, after being ordered to supply all these various resources. and the way it's done is quite fascinating. But it just shows us, in any case, however things come on the earth, however the material, the resources come to us, we are bound to use them in the Lord's service somehow, and reject those things that we can't use to offer to the Lord. So we have to always embrace or accept things favorable in the Lord's service and reject those things that are not favorable. Yeah, so I think that's all I can say about that.
Yes, Prabhu. It's very interesting, like the way you spoke about these. Otherwise, I probably would have skipped like many of the purports by not knowing how to understand these things.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember this part of the Bhagavatam. I can't remember this reading all about this, but it is very interesting to see how it all works. You know, how all these different personalities, like Lord Shiva, you know, like Lord Shiva's expansions, and even great devotees are taking part in this process of helping to provide resources, and how that all happens is so clearly explained here. And that's why Srila Prabhupada would give emphasis to the Srimad Bhagavatam being a very important scripture for the world, you know, so that they can be studied, and every you know, even the empirical scientists can help sort of start to understand how things actually came about, because it's so accurately described in the Bhagavatam. All right.
Yeah, very true.
Did the Mataji, Rohini Mataji, want to read something, or we just finish for the day?
Rohini Mataji usually makes garlands at this time. Rohini Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Oh, okay. Maybe she's busy making garlands.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, I put mute because I'm doing. But tomorrow I need flower, right? One day flower.
One day you want to speak?
No, flower for Friday.
You need flowers for Friday. We don't have.
No flower.
Oh, okay, Mataji. We'll make arrangements for flowers.
Okay, thank you. I put the mute. Okay.
Okay, so maybe we can end here, Prabhu.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Jai.
I'm late.
So we'll see you tomorrow, Mataji, 5 o'clock.
Sorry.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.